In this video, we're going to discuss how to write an essay introduction paragraph. We'll talk about one specific way to write your paragraph. Of course, there are many other different ways to write an introduction, but in this video, we'll talk about just one. Let's start by reviewing some basic information about the introduction paragraph. First of all, it's the first paragraph of any essay. It functions to grab the reader's attention, so it needs to be interesting. It provides the reader with background information about your topic, some general information about your topic, and finally it tells the reader the main idea of the essay with the thesis statement. Let's review the parts of the introduction paragraph. There are three basic parts: the hook, the background information, bridge, and the thesis statement. When you write the introduction paragraph, you start with the hook, which is a sentence or two to attract the reader's attention. Then you write the background information or bridge, which gives some general information about the topic to the reader and also connects the hook to the thesis statement. And the last thing in the introduction paragraph is the thesis statement, or the main idea of the essay. This is just one way that we can start an introduction paragraph. We can break it down into a 5-step process. First, we start with reading the writing prompt or the question that you need to answer for your essay. Then brainstorm ideas or think of ideas to write about. Write your thesis statement, write the hook, and write the background information. So here you can see that the parts of the introduction paragraph are out of order here, but there's a reason why we want to write these parts in this order when we do the introduction. Step 1 is read the writing prompt. So here's an example of a writing prompt. What is the difference between fresh food and packaged food? So we'll be working with this writing prompt as an example through this whole presentation. So the next step is to brainstorm ideas. This is where we try to think of all the ideas that we can based on the question so that we can kind of come up with ideas to write about in our essay. So there are many ways to brainstorm, but one way that I suggest is doing a free write. So in a free write, you just write nonstop about the topic for 2 minutes. You write basically anything that comes to your mind about this topic, or even if it seems like it's not related to the topic, you still put it down on your paper. But the whole point is for your pencil to not stop writing until the time is up. If you can't think of anything to write about, you just start writing, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, until something comes to your mind. So here's an example of a free write I did based on the essay question, the sample essay question that we saw earlier. You can pause the video here and read my free write if you like. Otherwise, we'll go on to step 3. Step 3 is to write your thesis statement. The thesis statement is written at the end of the introduction paragraph, but I think it's probably the best thing to do if you write your thesis statement first so that you know the direction of your essay. So remember that the question was, what is the difference between fresh food and packaged food? Now we go ahead and write the thesis statement at the bottom of your paper. The reason why we do this is because we're going to add the hook and the background information in the space above the thesis statement. The next step we can do is to write the hook. So for my example essay, introduction, I'm going to use a personal story. So we have the thesis at the bottom and my hook is here at the top. Last week I found an old backpack that I used to use in high school over 20 years ago. Step 5 is to write the background information and bridge. So you can actually compare my free write to this finished product, the essay introduction paragraph. You can pause the video and read the introduction paragraph here. But what I want you to notice is that I started with the hook. I have this background information, and then we end with the thesis statement. You'll notice that some of the information that is in this introduction paragraph is from my free write. For example, I talked about chemicals, I talked about snacks, I talked about a specific snack here, ho-ho, but the idea of the snack came from my free write brainstorm. The last thing I want to talk about is how to connect the sentences and ideas in your introduction. The introduction paragraph is not just random sentences about the topic. They're all connected in a special way. So one way you can connect them is to look for ideas that are similar in each sentence. So for example, in the hook I said, last week I found an old backpack that I used to use in high school over 20 years ago. The next sentence is, I looked inside the backpack and found a ho-ho chocolate cake that I had taken for lunch a long time ago. So you see that this idea of backpack and backpack, it's in the first sentence and in the second sentence. So the idea connects the sentences. Then here we have ho-ho chocolate cake. So if we remember that, we can go on to the next sentence. I opened it up and was surprised by the fact that the ho-ho looked fresh, as though I had just bought it yesterday. So again, we started here, sentence number 2. I wrote a ho-ho chocolate cake. The next sentence, I said I opened it up. It is referring to the cake. And then in the same sentence, I refer to the ho-ho again. The following clause, I have it again referring to the cake. So the same idea is present in all of these sentences. If we continued, I asked myself how this could be. How could a snack that was over 20 years old still look and even smell like I had just bought it? So this snack is referring to the ho-ho cake again. The fact is that chemicals in this cake had kept it looking and smelling fresh for over 2 decades, even though it was unrefrigerated and in an old backpack. Many other types of food all over the world are packaged in a similar way to this cake. So you can see, again, I used the word cake to refer to this ho-ho chocolate cake. I used it. And then in this sentence, many other types of food all over the world are packaged in a similar way to this cake. I still have this cake right here referring to the same snack in all the other sentences. But this time, I also said food all over the world are packaged in a similar way. So this idea, if we look to the next sentence, says in many cases these packaged foods are indistinguishable from fresh food. So packaged food is here, and this idea of packaged food is in the previous sentence. We ended this sentence with fresh food, and then we go on to our thesis. However, although they may look very similar, fresh food and packaged food differ from each other in flavor and health risks. So the ideas are connected throughout the entire introduction paragraph by either words or phrases or even pronouns like it. And that's just one way that you can put together an introduction paragraph.